Tonight, can we get right? Tonight, can we get right?
Hello, hi Ari, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing today?
Great, like wake up very early in the morning to prepare some stuff. Is it night? It's night there, right?
Yes, so 8 a.m. your time is 8 p.m. my time. So similar time, except it's on the other side around. So yeah.
It's awesome to really be able to right now like virtually meeting you and be able to talk about branding. And how are you? Is everything going back to normal there? Is opening? Yeah.
Sort of. So I feel like if you follow the news, United States is insane right now, right? I mean, some states is like spiking up again, and then some states is just like really flattening the curve, which is great. And I feel like we're so lucky here in Chicago. We're part of Illinois State, and we're one of the states that actually doing amazing. Let's not jinx it. But it's been really interesting to see how businesses are slowly opening up. Everybody's being very, very cautious about it, but I'm still pretty much nervous. I mean, you can obviously go to the restaurant and dine in, or technically dine outside on the patio, but I don't want to take the risk. I just don't want to take the risk, not right now. I feel like, yes, if I need something from the restaurant, I'll take it to go, but maybe slowly at a time, I think.
Yeah. Do they have services like Gojek there, like where people just like buy you stuff and send it to your home?
Yeah, we have Grubhub. I think we also have, what is it called? Gosh, I think I only use Grubhub and I don't know the other ones. But yeah, similar to Gojek, because honestly, I went back to Bali 2 years ago in 2018, and I was so surprised about how much things change. And, the startup scene is really picking up. And I feel like the entrepreneurial scene is just like fantastic and phenomenal. I was like, I'm so happy to see all of this growth. And I was like, yes, finally, way to go, Indonesia.
Yeah. I've seen how much we've progressed, but also at the same time, I think it's really great to be able to leverage on branding side as well. Because one thing that I realized when I come back from Singapore is like there's so many this attachment, like the what do you call it? Like this attachment about the how the design world there even is just like Southeast Asia, but we are kind of like lagging behind, so we need to really build the stuffs up. And I think I want to introduce you, but at the same time I believe that you have so much story to tell, like what are your passion maybe, and what keeps you doing what you're doing today. And yeah, maybe you can introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Ari Krzyzek. I know my last name is a little bit hard to pronounce, so you can certainly call me Ari. I'm the co-founder and chief creative officer at Cicalofia. We are a digital brand consultancy helping women tech founders or women-led technology companies with their branding, from either strategy to design and the implementation on the digital channel. So think of it like website, any implementation, functionality, funnels, anything around those, we do it all in-house. The only thing that we don't do is technically the mobile application development. That's a whole different world that I don't think we ever wanted to touch. But yeah, I've been dabbling in branding. I feel like it's almost 11 years now, and it's so fascinating because when I grew up in Bali, Indonesia, I honestly have no idea that there's a thing as design, or even like thinking like branding or creativity or advertising. Sure, those things exist, but as you probably already know this, Antiani, Bali is like what, 99% tourism, right? I mean, like everybody in my family, they're all in tourism. And as I grew up, all I know is literally just tourism. I feel like my world is so closed in. And then when I wanted to go to college, I decided to not to go to college, but my mom was like, no, you're going to college. And she gave me this application so that I can fill out a, what do you call that, scholarship to a tourism school. And I was like, sure, I don't have anything to lose, really. I filled it out, I got in, but on the last interview, I realized I wanted to be a designer. And then I marched in to the interview and I told all the judges, hey guys, this is great, fantastic, but I don't want it. I'm gonna go to art school. Bye, see ya. And they were like,
Awesome.
what just happened? What is wrong with this girl? And it was quite an interesting and very thrill experience, in the sense that I finally see that I want to do something else outside of tourism. I think that was my very first calling to the design world. And I went to the Indonesian Institute of the Arts. So you probably heard of ECE. There's one in Jogja and one in Bali.
Yeah.
So I went to the one in Bali and pursued my degree in visual communication design. Basically, from there on, anything around design, anything around web, anything around branding, I'm just so hooked into it, because I feel like there's quite a big power around branding. And I feel like we slowly associate ourselves with the brands that we love, the brands that we purchase from, and the brand that we feel really loyal to, right? But it took me a while to really understand, why do we behave that way? I mean, like, I would just be so adamant when people ask me, like, why don't you just use like Android, or why don't you just use like PC? Why do you use Mac? I come to a realization, it's because that we found a certain connection with these brands, right? We feel like not only these brands really solve your problem, they become the one thing that associate to your life, get associated so closely to you, and you feel very comfortable with them. They understand you as you understand them, in terms of like how to use it or how you leverage it in your day-to-day. So yeah, I think that will be a lot of different things that we were gonna discuss today. I feel like I'm spilling it out already, but yeah, let's talk about it. I'm ready whenever you are.
Yeah, all right. Wow, sounds great. Like, I love to speak from, like, I mean, with the person that I think we're in the same major. I also took visual communication design and then dived deep into branding, because I think brand is in the gap between business and also design. Like, I think sometimes people use the terms brand awareness and brand equity like interchangeably, and they may be connected, but they also, both of them, like, represent the different things. So I think in branding, like in your strategy, their specific roles must be really well addressed so that the strategy can swim. Maybe I will just highlight what is brand awareness, and maybe you can start with explaining what's brand equity for you. So I think brand awareness is the sense of familiarity for consumer, that they can connect with their with your brand qualities and also your visual identity, and that's something that will help to build your brand recognition in the market. So strong brand awareness is actually often the results in good brand equity, and I believe that in brand equity there are some hierarchy, and one of them is brand awareness. So maybe, Ari, like, what is your perspective on brand equity and design equity?
Oh man, if you got a chance to read a book from Kevin Lane Keller, he described it in his book, right? What is it and how do you actually use brand equity so that it's become a more of a strategic application in your business or in your company? You also mentioned this already, Sansiani. There are like 4 different stages. The number one is the silence, in terms of like, who are you as a brand? Like, okay, if you are a new company and you have a new business or new services and products, like, how do you communicate like who you are as a brand and as a company? So that's the first stage. And when you start implementing things like you mentioned brand awareness, and then like curating the brand identity so that people can slowly understand, like, okay, this is X, or maybe this is like, I don't know, Acme Inc. or whatever the name of the company is, right? It's like, how are they going to differentiate you and the other company in terms of like aesthetic wise, or like the awareness side of it, or even like how consistent are you? Because if you start using the, let's just say that you use a logo with a Helvetica font, and then it's always black, and then suddenly you just like have this like different colors and different font, suddenly you're using script, and then the color is like, I don't know, maybe blue or purple. It just becomes like, wait, what's going on? What is happening right now? There's a big disconnection between what you said you were and in terms of like what you are right now. I feel like if you're really trying to communicate new things, say that you just launched, but then you decided to, let's scrape that and pivot to new things. I feel like there should be a more strategic way for you to think about how do we communicate these new ideas now that we're moving to different direction. So making sure that you're communicating that clearly to your customers is really important. I've seen many businesses that just ignore all these things and they just like go ahead. It's like, yeah, we don't want to use this color anymore. Let's just do something completely 360 degrees, completely different. And it was like, and you ask yourself, like, why don't anybody understand that we're different now? Why do they not coming back? Because you suddenly change the whole thing. You become like a completely different person to them. And of course they don't recognize you because you're not communicating it very well. So I think if you have a really good understanding in terms of like, okay, now you are a brand, be consistent about it and slowly building that up in terms of like who you are, then that's good. If you nail that down, now you can move up to the next step, right? Or to the next phase. On the second phase that I believe, what is it called? Meaning, right? So now you have who you are and then you have what are you? You need to define like, okay, now I'm a brand, like, but what are we? Like as a brand, as a business, it also being seen as a character. You want to interact with your audience as they want to interact with you. So define who are you really for your audience. Like this is where a lot of those brand communication, like messaging, like positioning, and value alignment becomes very important. Because if you don't communicate that very well, your audience gonna see you as like, okay, that doesn't make sense to me, I'm leaving. But if you're really figuring out, okay, I'm targeting like a very specific audience, and this is how we're going to speak to them, there's a really good alignment in there, and then you're making a connection with them. So moving on from one, you have salience or who are you, and then you moving up to meaning, you have what are you. That's amazing. Now you can just like move up to the third one and really create like, okay, now what about you? I mean, I've seen like other companies out there that do similar things that you do. Let's take an example like Apple. There's Apple, there's Microsoft, there's Dell, right? Yeah. Pretty much all these three brands, they do completely the same thing. It's computer. You can use like your programs like your Adobe or Safari or anything else that you use, or even like Microsoft Word and things like that on all of these three different computers. Yeah. But what about them? I mean, what makes it so different between one to the other? What makes it different from Apple to Dell to Microsoft? Why does Apple has such a big brand equity? Yeah. Well, the answer is really simple. Number one, they're really consistent, right? They're very clean, they're very professional, they really curate those characters very deeply and carefully. And their alignment with the messaging that they want to put out there is spot on. If you've seen how they're really promoting their services, or not their products, they don't really talk about, how powerful this particular computer is. Yeah, it really sells the lifestyle, and that already sets it completely apart from the others. I mean, if I were to go to buy computers, I would not care how powerful it is. I just want to make sure that I can do what I do best on the computer. That is all that matters. And I think that's why when you create certain messaging for your brand, make sure that what you want to communicate to them is what exactly your customers wants to hear from you. If they don't want to talk about like the technicality, then forget about it. Just hit on the lifestyle. Like, hey, do you want to have like a computer that is really easy to use, like super powerful, and you don't have to even worry about viruses? Go for it. I mean, how many people would actually say yes to that? I mean, I had been using PC in the past. It's like, I don't want to deal with this. I just want to work. I just want to do my work and don't worry about technical stuff. So I guess that's like another example on those. And the last stage that Keller actually mentioned in his book is the final stage, right? The fourth stage, the resonance. This is where you finally figure out, okay, you have who you are, you have what are you, and then you figured out what about you that sets you completely different than others and make you stand out. The last one is that how can you connect with the audience really deeply and build your brand loyalty? So this is where you really think about like the brand relationship and how you can curate communities from your brand. Yeah. Do you have any questions so far, or should I just keep going?
You can keep going first. I will ask after.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
Cool. So, do you like Nike?
Yeah, I love Nike.
Okay, why do you like Nike, if I may ask?
Okay, well, I'm a very brand savvy person in terms of not like branded, but I mean, I love a brand that can somehow resonate. And okay, I think Nike is not just a product. Nike is a lifestyle. Nike is a boost. Like it helps me to motivate just by. I think everybody knows their tagline, which is "Just Do It." So I think it resonates a lot in my life that everything that challenges me, or maybe like some risk that maybe in whatever that I'm doing in life will risk me to do something that I never done before. That even just that tagline just always hit in my head. Okay, just do it, just do it, just do it. Like it's been a transformative message in my life, and I think that's one thing why I can really see that okay, their product is like everyone else also maybe have a like a quality like how they build their brand, but somehow the tone and their messaging, it helps to improve lives, and that's why I like it.
Nice. This is my other question about Nike. Do you own a Nike shoes?
I own, yeah. I used
Okay.
to run Nike shoes.
That's fantastic. I honestly have never purchased any Nike product before, but I always admire their brand. I feel like they're always consistent. They're always so empowering. I think that's another thing that really stood out from them. And what I see them doing as a brand is that they're very innovative. I feel like they always trying to stay ahead the trend, and they always try to stay ahead, the demand and all of the things that are happening in the world. I feel like even further as a brand, they create bigger impact for not just the community, but also for planet Earth. I think they create such an inspiring brand that is not many brands are able to do and create. And I feel like that helps them build those brand equity because they're leveraging the communities so that they become the raving fans for Nike themselves, right? You see so many like athletes out there that really helps empower other young athletes, or even if you're not into sports, I'm not, by the way. So even if you're not into sport, that is okay, because the point is that whether you're an athlete or not, you'll enjoy Nike because it is made to do what it's do best, to just do it, right? So thinking with all of those examples now though, how do you really now create a brand that really get to those highest point, the fourth point where you can find a resonance with building relationship with your audience? That is not easy. I have to tell you that. I feel like there's a lot of businesses out there that's still struggling. I feel like there's only a couple of brands that you know out there that had done it to the fourth stage, but it doesn't mean that you cannot do it. I mean, it's not impossible. You just have to be consistent. I feel like when you really figure out like who you are as a brand, it's a really good starting point. And when you understand like who your target audience and how you can speak to them, that's even better, because then you're slowly building out these communities that will be the raving fans for you. So honestly, yeah, there's a lot of different things going around brand equity, but start somewhere. If you don't know where to start by understanding who you are as a brand first, who you are as the character of this brand, either it's through your brand attributes or your value, and who you really want to target, and how are you positioning yourself to them.
All right. Just now when you speak about all this 4 stages, I have a question that just now you said about being consistent, and I think this question will really point something that people are struggling with in terms of rebranding, because I think rebranding has, for me, it always has 2 definitions, either evolution or either revolution, and sometimes people don't really know how to transition their brand from the existing one to the future of what they foresee themselves. And as a brand consultant like you are, and also strategist, like how do you leverage the brand equity in terms of bringing the journey for the consumer to be able to adventure with you through that process?
I think it all have to do with the story of the brand. I feel like it's kind of rare that you change your brand story, right? when you create a brand, there's always this one particular story that stick with you. You carry that throughout your journey or even throughout the transformation of your brand. The one thing that changed during redesign, in my opinion, or rebranding, is just the identity. You're still carrying all of the essence. You're still carrying all of the, the mission and the vision of the company. And if that changed, sure, it may affect the other part of the story of your brand, but I don't think that's gonna change it as much, to be honest with you, unless you're changing it like through a whole different thing. We were talking about right? And how do you transition from like the old rebrand into the new rebrand? Always would hold heart when you do any rebranding is the story. Make sure that you don't lose the story. How you can leverage the brand story consistently throughout the journey of your rebrand, and leverage that to influence like your, how are you going to create new messaging for either a new market or promoting either new services or products.
Yeah. So I do really find it very tricky if like I don't say like global brands, like brands in Indonesia, if like they just want to reface and change their face in the market, they tend to like just like be a Superman kind of thing. Like you just wear your normal ordinary clothes and then suddenly you want to be a superior hero and you just like, Bob, here I am. And that's how the disengagement will turn out to be a roller coaster, because I believe the smooth transition will help people to understand your brand more. And this is the tricky part, because a lot of marketing people and a lot of branding people doesn't really help the business owners and also the brand owners to be able to work together with their consumers, so that when they reface, like to become their Superman, people will, okay, now I get it why you need to be someone new. Or maybe because like in rebranding, it's either you totally scrap off your old image to become a new image, or you just like slowly but surely change your image. And there's a two different thing. Like if you want to reface, and that will impact so much in your awareness, recognition, and also your brand equity. And a lot of people doesn't know how to execute this effectiveness in brand equity. And I think it is very important to know, do you have some ideas like what are the learning metrics to understand the strength of brand equity for your brand?
I would say one thing before we continue though. A lot of time when clients come to us, they don't know what they don't know, right? And most of them would actually admit that they don't know what they don't know. Now, from what I hear, from what you're saying, is that many of the businesses, they just want to get a facelift, right? They don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of how do you create the right brand, or how do you even like get started to make sure that you have a really good foundation for your brand, so that whatever you do going forward, you have like a very strong base or like a very strong foundation for your brand already.
Yeah.
The point of like having a brand strategy, it's exactly that, to really figure out like, okay, who are you really as a brand? Because we need to know that first before we even get to anything that is pretty or anything that is designed. That can be for later. I feel like a lot of the time when, client who only understand branding, all they know is the logo, the color, the font, and all that different thing. That's what they have in their mind. What they don't know is that brand is more comprehensive than that. And oftentimes don't understand because they just don't have the, the education on those. It's our job to really, loop them in terms of like, before we get to all the pretty things, all the exciting things, all the creative things, we need to really get to the strategy first. It always has to come down first, because sure, we can certainly go to that route that to, just design thing, but then you're not going to have a really strong foundation. It's just going to be like, how do I say this? It's more like a pretty page, or like this is like a pretty mask in front of you, but behind that mask, it's a crappy, it's either like a very messy thing inside it. You don't want that. You have to have like, just like building a house, you want to really have a strong foundation so that whatever happens, like a typhoon or earthquake, whatever, it will stay strong. And I think that is the big piece that I would want people to really understand is that when it gets to your brand, you need to really understand, like, number one, who you are as a brand. What do you want this brand to be in the market or in the industry, or even like for your audience? How are you making an impact? And then, and who are you really serving? Like, I want to really understand, like, the people that is going to buy from you, the people who's going to stay loyal to you, and the people who are really going to share all about you to their friends, their family, their network, to everybody else, basically. So how are you going to get there? If you only have like, hey, I have a very pretty logo and that's it, sure, it's running pretty, but that's just like for 1 second, people just look at, okay, that's pretty, great job. But then what?
Yeah.
People are going to buy from you just because you have a pretty logo. It has to mean something, right? It has to like really speak to this particular audience. Like, oh my God, yes, it really resonates with what I want to have, like what I want to wear, or things like that really solve my problem. But do you even know, like, what are you really solving? So I think that's the misconception for a lot of the business owners out there that don't really have enough education around branding. All they see is just the pretty things, and they forgot there's a lot more complexity and more fun stuff, in my opinion, under it.
Yeah. So do you know, like, how to develop, like, I believe brand equity also results in VISAC, which is like a visual equity of the brand itself. And a lot of people that, if they don't have, like, let's say a consultant, like a brand consultant, if they don't have such a background also in creativity, they wouldn't be able to touch that very deeply, because it's visual. It's you need a creative interpretation, how to bring your strategy into the execution and onto the design. So maybe I'll just ask you, like, how to develop like a brand world, like a brand presence through brand identity system that can be universal to all your platforms.
I think it's not just going to rely on design. I mean, even though I love design and I love being creative, right? But I'm going to tell you a story, actually. So when I started being a designer, all I want to do is to design anything and everything. So because I just want to transform, like, you know, the ugly things to the most beautiful things, right? That's me like 8 years ago. And then when I met my husband, he really talking into sense to me and basically says, Ari, does this really solve a certain business problem? And I was like, I don't care. Like, I just want to make it pretty. It was like, so I feel like, in a sense, what I was trying to say is that you really need to look at design as an approach in terms of like solving a certain problem. So for example, do you know what a date is? Like, there's this fruit, I don't know what it is in Indonesia, but it's a very interesting fruit. It's very small, like date type of thing. It looks really ugly by itself, right? And yeah, dates. If you know what that is, I don't know how it tastes. Actually, I never even wanted to try because it looks so ugly. But some people love dates. But say that you are a very adventurous person who loves to try new fruits, and you go to the store and you wanted to buy dates, right? You go to the store and then you see this one pack of dates with just plastic packaging, with just a sticker, very simple, just the name of the brand, and then, you know, the weight of the fruit. The other box that you see is very nicely packaged, has a really nice design, and it has a story in it, because it really share with you, like, okay, where do we get this dates? Where do we harvest it? How are we making an impact on these, like, you know, the farmers that we got these dates from? Who are you really going to choose? In my opinion, it's probably the one that is in a nicer packaging that really tells me, oh my God, by purchasing this, it's going to make an impact to the farm. Like, by purchasing this, I'm actually, you know, like, contributing to certain impact to other people. Of course you're gonna go with that one because it's your self-conscious. But if you're like other people who just want to care about, okay, I just want to go for the money, like, you know, like the most that I can get for the money, right? Go for it. But if they're targeting people like me who really values creating an impact to others, they got me. Literally find me, like, okay, now I love this company. I want to tell all my friends about it. So I think if you are either consultant or designer, so people in the brand industry really understand like how are you solving that particular problem in terms of like communicating this particular product so that customer will engage to it on the very first try or the very first time they meet with you, or like see you on the aisle, or maybe browse around in the supermarket if it's a product like packaging, stuff like that. And if it's online, if they browse around, what really attracts this one particular user to sign up into either the platform or like basically be in that particular communities that they're building. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, that is really good. And I think, well, in my experiences in terms of coming up with a new brand identity and brand concept for the people, I believe brand equity is the marriage also for strategy and design to stand balanced together. Because like you said just now, packaging is a whole entire universe. Okay, like it's just like in one rack, and you know how confusing it can be, like even us choosing makeups. Like it's crazy how all the packages are just so aesthetic, and we don't really know which one is good to your skin because it just looks so good. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm a design person as well, but design can make you feel like really good about yourself. And if you really top it up with a very meaningful actions like what you say just now, if it does make an impact, and maybe sometimes impact doesn't really just do it on behind the scene, I mean, of how you source it, how you help the people you work with, like the consumer. I mean, me, if I purchase a makeup, I don't really, okay, you say it's organic and all the natural resources that you just create a makeup, but then if it doesn't goes well with let's say my face, and it makes my breakouts just happen. Like, I'm sorry that I talk about this woman stuff, but
no, that's fine.
Yeah, and it will devalue the brand, because what you're selling and what you're impacting on your own community doesn't really impact in my life. I mean, I purchased that not because like I want to give you a charity so that you can move along with what you're doing, but so I think it has to be balanced in terms of the consumer experiencing your product, and also the way how you portray it out in the market. And still, I mean, Indonesia still has a lot of work to do in terms of not just like thinking about pulling up the packaging, the visual that is so enticing, and it helps the people to really buy your product in like one look. But then after that, it really relies on the quality of your product and how do you maintain it? Like, how do you maintain your consumer? Like, I really like what you say, that maybe a lot of businesses today need to think more than just a membership approach and how to let other people subscribe to their thing that they're offering, and build communities. Because through communities, they can know your values better. And I think not every consumer wants to be in your community, of course, but
exactly
when you can transition your membership approach towards a much more community building and also brand building inside a community, then people can start to learn and understand your brand opinions better about your product and how they can believe together with you. Maybe you would like to explain about that and about how to build communities to leverage your equity.
I do like what you're saying, especially when you mention, like, not everybody is your target audience. I think a lot of the time businesses forget that one, right? We've got a lot of like different clients in the past that come to us, and when we ask them, okay, who are you really targeting? And their answer are typically the same. We're targeting everybody. It's like, wait, what? You can't target everybody. When you're targeting everybody, you're targeting no one. Remember that. Yeah. Like, when you're targeting everybody, you're literally not targeting them at all. You need to really be clear in terms of like, okay, I'm targeting XYZ person. They typically live in the city. Maybe in your case, like they typically live in Jakarta. Maybe they have like a car, and then they have kids. I think, what does their life look like? You need to understand, like, who is this one person that you're really trying to, get to know, and introduce your product to them, and hoping that whatever you are sharing with them, whether it's your product or services, will better their life, right? I think that's the main purpose of a brand, to better life for someone. And it can't be everyone. Everyone is created differently, and we're all unique. We have different needs. I mean, my needs as a woman may not be the same as your needs, Santiani, right? I mean, I have a kid, and then I have like a dog and all that different stuff. You may not have both. Maybe you just have one. But really understand, like, if you really talking to just like one person, it's going to be really easy to target them. And especially when you start moving this into marketing, you know where to find these people, because you're going to find out, okay, apparently X, Y, and Z person, let's just, her name is Jane Doe. Jane Doe typically always hang out in the mini mart, or maybe she always go to the beach during the weekend. Then you know where to be, right? You know where you can actually, you know, present yourself in front of them. It's like, hey, you are currently at the beach, check out our product. If you're targeting everybody, you're not going to be in all over the world, like all the time. That's impossible to me. Well, maybe if you're like super millionaire, you can, but yeah, that's just not feasible for a brand, right? So
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, like just now when I was thinking about, so there are a lot of like huge companies that actually want to reface, and then they find that they don't know about building brand presence, because I think instead of just the presence of your brand, it has to be evolved consistently. And the word evolve consistently is tricky, because being consistent and evolving at the same time, being consistent and innovate at the same time, it's tricky, because you can just like be in a very thin line of just come up with something new that people don't really, okay, why all in a sudden, say, I think the season where Apple just become very colorful, and then suddenly we there are a lot of buzz, right? Like, why do they do this? Like, that's when after Steve Jobs passed away, and they started doing that. But actually, they are trying to somehow touch on different areas to help other people to be more accessible also to their product, even though when I call it access in terms of Apple, like they still maintain, like even though they come up with the Type R series and blah blah blah, they have like still a very niche market, even though they cheapen a little bit of their products. And that's okay, because I think when that's what I call evolve consistently. Like you don't really change the whole audience that you're talking to. Well, I think we have already spoken about like what are the areas that help people to understand brand equity. And maybe one of the area that we haven't touched is that what may threaten your brand equity? What aspects that can threaten it?
that's a really good question. In my opinion, I feel like whenever you feel that you want to change something, don't change things right away, right? If you are trying to hit a new target market, or even like move into a different direction, don't do it immediately. I would consider like maybe give your audience a heads up in terms of like what you are doing as a brand, what you're currently considering, and what you're planning to do, before just like surprising to everyone. It's like, hey, surprise, now we're doing X. Don't do that. I feel like as a brand, you are getting very close to your customers, and customers always want to make sure that they are, you know, like their voice means something to the brand. They want to be listened. They want to feel like they contribute to the brand in a sense that either they're voting about something or they can share their voice out. So I feel like in a sense, you do want to either move to a different direction and do something else, launch something new. Consider doing a survey or like a consumer research first. Talk to your audience. Ask them what they really want. I'm just going to wrap up this one real quick. So basically, whenever you do want to hit either new market or reach out to new audience, or even like create new products or services, do your own diligence on the consumer research, because that will really help give the power to your audience to give out their voice, or at least share their voice and help them feel like they're also being listened, because eventually you are going to target these products to them anyway. So what can you do to make sure that when you hit this product or services to the market, you're going to get like the better response that you would hope for? So never discount the voice from your own consumer, because those are gold. You have that at your fingertips. Use it.
Awesome. Wow, that's a really nice one. And I think I would recommend a book for the people here. And I don't think if there's any question that we have to answer right now. But there's a book called, I think, Brand Equity, like David Aker, the founder of Profit Brand, was the one that's writing it. And he pulled it off very deliberately about the roadmap of building and managing brand equity. And I think if you guys want to dive deeper about it, you can try to read that book. And he highlighted these 3 things about brand loyalty, brand awareness, and also brand association. And I love the brand associations part, because it helps to bring up the perceived quality of how your consumer will have the right perception of your brand. Like, I think it's just a summary of what we've already talked about. And the first to help your brand to associate more with your consumer is that you have to help communicate the information as well, like the tone of message that you have. And then second, you have to really differentiate and also position yourself well in the market. The 3 is the reason to buy. And I think this one is really, you need to go down to the neat details of how people need a reason to buy a product rather than picking others. And then the 4th would be create a positive attitude or feelings. So sometimes like brands will just like, if they have complaints or maybe doesn't deliver well to its customers, and they just leave it like a blank page without really associate again like how your brand can improve to help the communities. And I think that positive attitudes needs to be also communicated very well. And also create basis for extensions. Extensions means after maybe you launch this product, and then what you need to do to strategize for the future. And I think that's how we can really maintain brand equity well in the market. Do you have anything else, like the last part maybe?
Yes, okay. I do. Thank you for asking me that. One thing that I would definitely leave everyone with is that when you create a brand, it's never going to be finished, right? The work is always going to be continuing from time to time, or even like you need to review it from time to time as well, because don't think of it like this. Okay, I have a company, I need a brand, I got all my logos, I got all my branding stuff, all done. No, that is wrong, right? It's like building a brand is a consistent work, right? And you're never going to be done with it, because it is your brand in a sense that you are going and walking and literally living alongside with it. So always make sure that you revisit the idea in terms of like, okay, where do we stand as a brand? Like whether it's like 6 months or every year, make sure you really review like, okay, are we still on track in terms of our mission and vision? Are we still doing that? Are we hitting the right goals for our companies and brand? Are we really talking to the right audience? I feel like you're always going to evolve, right? You're always going to pivot depending on the situation or what may have come your way as a brand or company. You never know. But keep in mind that when you create a brand, it's a consistent, ongoing work.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for highlight that part. It helps us to maintain our business too, because it's a continuing process. But
you're very welcome.
It's been a very fun talk with you this morning and your night time. And I know that I don't want to keep you so long because you need your baby sleep, but I'm looking forward for another time if we get a chance to bring up some new topics on board and discuss it again with you.
Yes, definitely. keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ari. Appreciate your time for filling.
You're very welcome. All right, thank you.
Have a good night there.
Baby, can we
Bye-bye.
get right?
Bye.
Tonight, can we get right? Tonight, can we get right?